He was one of the most powerful men in America, a billionaire, CEO of one of the country's top tech empires. And that morning, everything seemed under control until he realized the translator was gone. And across the table, the Arab investors were growing impatient. In a matter of seconds, a $300 million deal began to unravel, and with it, his image. In the corner of the room, hands still smelling of cleaning solution, stood Maya, the maid. No one ever noticed. But in that moment, with her boss's entire future on the line, she did the unthinkable. And what happened next changed everything. It was nearly 9 a.m. The sun cut through the massive glass windows of the mansion, bouncing off imported Italian marble floors. A warm breeze crept in through the open windows, carrying the dryness of a California summer. Alexander Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics, paced the grand hall in a custom suit, gold watch on his wrist, fingers twitching with anxiety. The most ruthless man in tech couldn't afford a mistake. Not today. In the conference room, 3 Arab businessmen sat quietly, composed, powerful, traditional men, fluent in strategy, not English. They had made one non-negotiable demand: a fluent Arabic translator. Without one, the deal would collapse before it even began. The room was pristine. Icelandic mineral water, leather folders, sleek tablets with mirrored English and Arabic presentations. Everything had been flawlessly arranged except one glaring absence. "Where's the translator?" Alexander growled through clenched teeth. "He sent a message, sir. He got sick on the way," his assistant stammered. "Sick? This isn't a high school project. It's a multi-million-dollar deal." Alexander grabbed his phone, called every agency in the city, barked at 2 directors, and nearly fired an intern. No luck. No Arabic interpreter available in under 30 minutes. The investors were already exchanging glances. At the back of the hall, almost invisible in her gray uniform, Maya wiped down the crystal staircase. She heard everything, every insult, every threat, every ounce of desperation. Maya, who'd been working there for over a year without so much as a good morning. No one knew her last name. No one cared. But in that moment, she knew she could stop the collapse. She took a breath, but didn't move. Not yet. Because that room wasn't just a conference space. It was the place she was meant to disappear. And stepping forward meant burning the veil of silence she had worn to survive. Alexander slammed a chair. "This is falling apart." And then Maya spoke. And just like that, the walls that kept her invisible started to crack. Maya held the microfiber cloth in her hands, but her eyes weren't on the glass anymore. They were on Alexander, the man who had never looked at her for more than a second. The man who believed everything revolved around his voice, his money, his control. She had seen that look before in the eyes of powerful men when the ground beneath them begins to shift. And today she recognized it again. Fear. While Alexander's team scrambled like ants, one of the Arab businessmen, a man in his 50s with a trimmed beard, muttered something low to the others, his tone impatient. Maya stepped forward, then stopped. Speaking up would change everything, because this wasn't just a business meeting. This was the place where she was supposed to stay silent. Where nobody knew she once studied languages before life forced her to drop out. Where nobody cared that her father had been a linguistics professor in Sudan, or that she grew up hearing 5 languages in a single home. But something stirred inside her, something older than fear, something passed down from the grandmother who'd crossed deserts with babies strapped to her back. Alexander barked orders again. "I'm going to lose this deal." Maya stepped closer. "Sir, if you'd like, I can try to translate." Silence complete and sharp. Alexander's marketing assistant, blonde Ivy League, froze. The personal assistant, Jessica, stifled a laugh. Alexander turned confused. "You translate Arabic? You're the maid, right?" "Yes, sir. But I'm also fluent in classical Arabic and Gulf dialect. My father taught linguistics in Khartoum." The Arab businessmen exchanged glances. One said something to her. Maya responded instantly, smoothly in flawless Arabic. Their faces changed. Smiles replaced suspicion. Alexander blinked. "You're joking." Maya looked directly at him for the first time. "No, but you're playing with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." He didn't respond. Pride and panic wrestled inside him. Ego shouted, but the stakes shouted louder. He nodded. "Then sit. Make it count." Maya walked to the empty seat beside the investors. The cloth was still in her hand. In that moment, someone finally realized she had never just been there to clean. Her first words were silk. Maya translated with razor-sharp precision, her voice calm and steady like a breeze pushing through a collapsing storm. Not a single stumble, not a pause, just quiet command, dressed in humility. Mr. Al-Rashid says he appreciates the welcome, but if proper communication isn't possible, he prefers to postpone the meeting. She translated the frustration with careful neutrality. Alexander stared at her like a man witnessing a ghost become real. "Tell him that won't be necessary. We're ready to present right now." Maya relayed the message in Arabic with grace. One of the elder investors raised an eyebrow, replying in a soft but testing tone. She answered just as smoothly, adding context, softening tension, correcting a small but critical misprint in their materials, all without flinching. Alexander watched her stunned. It was no longer a miracle, it was mastery. From the back of the room, Jessica crossed her arms. Her stare was sharp, her discomfort rising with every compliment Maya received in a language she couldn't understand. "Did he really say that?" Alexander whispered. "Yes, he liked the clarity of your proposal, but he's suggesting a change in the intellectual property clause. You caught that?" "Yes, I understand more than you think, Mr. Sterling." There was something in his eyes then. Not sympathy, not surprise. Something heavier. Respect. Maybe even the beginnings of shame. The meeting found its rhythm. The tension broke. The once impatient investors leaned forward, engaged. They smiled. They laughed. One offered Maya a bottle of water. A subtle but meaningful gesture of dignity. She declined politely. She wasn't there to rest. Not yet. When the deal closed 2 hours later, the men stood and shook Alexander's hand. Maya translated one final phrase with poise. "They say they consider you trustworthy, thanks to Miss Maya." Alexander gave a tight nod, still processing. As the investors left, the room emptied. He remained seated, staring at nothing. Maya gathered her notepad. The cloth from earlier still sat beside it. "Where did you learn to do that?" he asked. She didn't smile, just answered. "Life and the silence of rooms where no one expects anything from you." He said nothing. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. In the shadows behind them, Jessica was already watching the footage from the kitchen's security feed. Her hands hovered over her keyboard, and her next move wouldn't be quiet. The house was different the next morning. Same floors, same walls, but a new current ran through them. Curiosity, whispers, discomfort. Maya arrived early. Same routine. But now every glance that used to pass through her lingered. At the top of the stairs, Jessica waited like a storm cloud. "Good morning, Maya," she said sweetly. Too sweet. "Good morning, Miss Jessica," Maya replied, voice even. "So, your little moment yesterday made quite the impression. Must feel nice to be special for a day." Maya gave a faint smile. Sometimes one day is all it takes to change everything, especially when it's earned. Jessica's jaw clenched. She walked off, heels clicking like threats. Later, Alexander called Maya into his home office. He was different too. Less polished, more human. His tie was loose, his eyes tired. "I spoke with the investors. They want you at the next meetings officially." Maya raised an eyebrow. "As what, a translator?" "As the company's official international liaison." She paused, sat down. "And your team? They're just going to accept that?" "They'll have to, or they can leave." Maya studied him. Calm, controlled. "Do you trust me, or are you just trying to save your deal?" He was quiet for a beat. "Maybe both, but I saw something in you yesterday I can't ignore." She nodded slowly. "I'll do it, but on one condition." "Name it." "No more uniform, and I don't enter through the back door." He took a deep breath, then smiled. "Genuine this time. Deal." When Maya stepped back into the hallway, the marble still gleamed. The art still hung, but the floor under her feet felt different now. She no longer walked like a maid. She walked like a woman taking her place. Upstairs, Jessica's fingers flew across her laptop, and a poorly translated contract in Arabic was about to make everything explode. Monday morning at the Sterling Dynamics corporate headquarters felt different. Not because of the deal, not because of any press release, because of her, Maya. Now walking through those glass doors with a new ID badge. Maya Hassan, International Communications Coordinator. The soft sound of her low heels echoed through the corridors, but louder still were the stairs. She wasn't invisible anymore. That should have felt like a victory, but it felt dangerous. On the 14th floor, the Arab investors were already seated for their second-round meeting. Alexander greeted them with sharp business formality. But the moment Maya stepped into the room, they all stood and smiled. "Miss Maya," said the eldest one warmly in Arabic, "a true pleasure to see you again." She returned the greeting with grace. Her presence calmed the air like incense. Rich, grounding, unforgettable. The meeting began. Maya didn't just translate, she navigated. She adjusted tone, softened offense, corrected cultural missteps, bridged concepts no spreadsheet ever could. And every time she did, Alexander watched with something new in his eyes. Humility. But not everyone was applauding. In the copy room downstairs, Jessica stared at a printed contract with narrowed eyes. She had slipped in a clause, one small vague sentence about intellectual property rights, slightly mistranslated Arabic, easy to miss. "Let's see how smart she really is," Jessica whispered to herself, pressing send. Back upstairs, Maya was scanning a draft handed to her by an investor. Her brows furrowed. She paused. Her fingertips ran across a line she hadn't seen before. Then she looked up. "Mr. Al-Rashid, with respect, there's a serious error in this clause." Alexander leaned in. "What kind of error?" This wording would give Sterling Dynamics full control over patents developed on foreign soil that violates the terms you agreed on verbally and contradicts the English version. A chill swept the room. Alexander stood stunned. "You're sure?" "I'm certain, but if you let me fix it now, I can stop this from becoming a disaster." The men were already whispering among themselves. Alexander gave a small nod. Maya turned to the investors and spoke clearly, passionately. Honestly, she explained the misprint, the intent, the correction. She didn't just calm them, she earned their trust again. When it ended, the oldest investor placed his hand gently on the table and smiled. "You don't work for him. He works because you are here." Alexander laughed under his breath. Because it was true. Meanwhile, Jessica received a reply in her inbox. "Subject to internal review. Report to HR immediately." 3 days later, the deal was officially signed. Sterling Dynamics was now entering the Middle East with strength, trust, and a translator who had become its most critical asset. But inside the company, the air was shifting. Maya walked the halls of corporate power with ease now. No badge could measure her authority. People who used to look through her now turned to her. Some smiled, some whispered, others stared with quiet resentment. At 3:30 p.m., Alexander's voice came through her office intercom. "Maya, can you come to my office for a minute?" She entered. He was leaning back in his chair, reviewing a long contract. "The investors are starting a new research hub in the Gulf," he said, looking up. "They want you on site for the first 3 months. Meetings, strategy, face of the partnership." Maya tilted her head. "In person, not virtual." "No, they want you there with them. You've become the bridge." She didn't answer right away. He stood. "You changed this deal, Maya. You changed this company. You changed me." She held his gaze. "Are you offering this to me? Because it's smart business? Or because you finally see me?" Alexander walked closer. "Both." She nodded slowly. "If I go, my sister comes with me. She's stable, but I won't leave her behind." "Of course. Anything you need." Maya looked toward the large window behind him. The sunset painted everything gold. She whispered, "My whole life, people told me you can't. Now someone finally said, "Why not?" Alexander smiled. "You've always been bigger than the roles they forced you into." Maya left the office in silence, but something in her eyes said it loud. She wasn't going back. She was going forward, and the world would have to catch up. Jessica arrived early that day. Her heels stabbed the marble floors with every step, her jaw tight, her eyes burning with something she hadn't felt in years: irrelevance. She didn't knock. She walked straight into Alexander's office. He was reviewing documents, his back turned to her. "We need to talk," she said, voice like a blade. Alexander didn't look up. "If it's about the contract, I know the clause wasn't authorized. The legal team's already handling it." Jessica stepped forward, voice rising. "That was a formatting issue. Just a mistake." Alexander finally turned to face her. "No, it was sabotage." Maya caught it and fixed it again. The name cut through the room like thunder. "You're blinded by her," Jessica hissed. "Can't you see what's happening? You're throwing away years of loyalty for a housemaid with a convenient talent." Alexander's tone dropped, calm but razor sharp. "Watch your words." Jessica's hands curled into fists. "She doesn't belong in our world. She will tear it down." "No," he replied quietly. "She's showing us what the world could have looked like if we hadn't spent decades ignoring voices like hers." Jessica's face twisted. "If she stays, I go." Alexander didn't hesitate. "Then you know where the door is." Jessica's eyes flared, wounded pride boiling over, but she turned and left, slamming the door behind her. Outside, Maya stood near the terrace, arms crossed, watching the garden below. The same terrace she used to sweep in silence. Now she stood there as a woman who had rewritten her place. Alexander approached from behind, quiet. "You heard?" "No, but I felt it. She's gone." Maya didn't react, just stared at the horizon. "Someone got hurt by my rise." "You didn't hurt anyone, Maya. They were just never ready for someone like you to shine." She turned toward him. "So tell me, Mr. Sterling, who am I to you now?" Alexander met her gaze. "Someone who made me question everything, someone I respect." They stood there for a moment, two people on opposite sides of power, now facing each other on equal ground. In the distance, a storm gathered. But inside both of them, something quieter and far more dangerous was starting to grow. 3 days later, Maya stood in the heart of Sterling's operations wing, watching the buzz of assistants and executives swirl around her. She no longer wore the gray uniform. She no longer entered through the side door. She now had a private office. And still she felt the eyes admiring, resentful, curious. Alexander summoned her. His office had changed too. Less cold, more lived in. "The investors want to take the next step," he said. "A joint research and development hub in the Gulf. They asked for you to lead the cultural and communication front." Maya paused. "They want me to go?" "Yes, on site, 3 months, full authority." She stared at him. "And you? Why do you want me to go?" Alexander didn't dodge the question. "Because you've become more than the bridge. You're the reason the bridge exists." She stepped closer. "This isn't just business anymore, is it?" "No, not to me." Maya's voice softened but stayed steady. "If I go, my sister comes with me. That's non-negotiable." "Done," Alexander said without hesitation. Maya looked toward the horizon through the glass wall behind him. "All my life doors were locked. People looked at me and saw limits. Now they look and hesitate. Maybe that's the beginning of real power." Alexander stepped beside her. "You don't need to prove anything anymore." She turned to him with quiet fire in her eyes. "I'm not proving anything. I'm building something from scratch." She left the room with her head held high. And for the first time, the building didn't feel too big for her. It felt like it was finally expanding to match her size. Maya sat on the balcony of a high-rise hotel in Abu Dhabi. The warm night wind brushed across her face and the skyline shimmered in golden glass. From this height, the world below looked almost unreal. Inside, her sister Layla was fast asleep, safe, stable. For the first time in years, Maya could breathe without the constant weight of survival pressing on her chest. Her phone buzzed, a message from Alexander. "How are you, really?" She stared at the screen for a moment, then typed, "At peace." "You?" His reply came almost instantly. "Trying to figure out who I was before I met you, and why I let that version of me last so long." Over the next few days, their messages grew more frequent. Work talk turned into late-night exchanges, sometimes light, sometimes deep, like they were slowly rewriting each other's definitions of connection. One night, he called, "Hey, I know it's late, but do you have a minute?" "Sure. When you get back, I want to take you somewhere." "Where? Some fancy steakhouse with a $10 water menu?" "No," he laughed. "The neighborhood I grew up in. It's not pretty, but it's real." "Then maybe I'll say yes." He paused. "Maya, you didn't just change the company. You changed something in me, and that scares the hell out of me." She exhaled slowly. "Fear is the tax we pay for transformation, Alexander, but you learn to walk with it. You make me want to be better, not for credit, not out of guilt, just because I finally want to." Maya smiled to herself, staring out into the desert skyline. "Then start. But don't do it for me. Do it for the version of you the world hasn't met yet." The next day, the investors invited her to a private ceremony. The eldest sheikh handed her a small gold pendant inscribed in Arabic, a symbol of wisdom and courage. "You didn't just translate our language," he said. "You translated our hearts to them and theirs to us. That is far more valuable than money." And as Maya closed her fingers around the pendant, she realized she was no longer just a bridge. She was becoming the architect of something new. 2 years later, the name on the building no longer read Sterling Dynamics. It now read Sterling and Hassan International, an empire of global innovation, co-led by minds, hearts, and histories that once lived on opposite ends of power. At the center of it all, Maya, she didn't wear a badge anymore. Her name appeared on policy documents, global initiatives, and conference stages. But today, she stood in a quieter space, on the grounds of the mansion where it all began. Only now, it wasn't a mansion. It was a foundation, a leadership institute for young black girls, immigrant youth, and overlooked dreamers. In the garden, a group of girls listened to a mentor speak. Maya watched them with quiet pride. Alexander stood beside her. "Do you remember the first time you really saw me?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "You were holding a rag, but it felt like you were carrying something bigger." "I was, and I still am." They walked in silence for a few moments. Then he stopped. "Sometimes I wonder if that translator hadn't bailed that day. You'd have closed the deal with difficulty," she cut in. "And I'd still be scrubbing toilets no one sees." He nodded. "But none of this would exist." Maya turned to face him. "Do you know why all of this worked?" "Why?" "Because when someone like me walks into a room they were never invited to and stays, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself around that truth." Alexander looked at her with deep reverence. No guilt, no pity, just awe. Maya turned her gaze back to the garden. The breeze moved through the trees, lifting curls from her shoulders. "You still think I was just a lucky maid?" she asked, her voice low. He shook his head slowly. "You were the revolution. You knocked on my door with a rag in one hand and a storm in the other." They both smiled. Just then, a young girl ran up to her, eyes bright, holding a notebook. "Miss Maya, I have something I want to show you. My idea. I was hoping maybe you'd be the first to read it." Maya knelt down, met the girl's eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. Show me everything. The world needs your voice." Because Maya no longer translated words, she translated futures. And where others had built walls, she left doors wide open.